Okay, this is Rodney Miller with questions this week. I'm going to do it. I've got 6 questions and I'm just going to knock them all out in one video. For ease of reference though, question 1 is from David, question 2 is from Adam, question 3 is from Lydia, question 4 is from Stephen, 5 is from Minnie, and 6 is from Vic. So that way maybe you don't have to watch through the ones that you're not interested in. The first question is, what is Rodney's background in ultras? I personally have no background in ultra marathons. I have trained runners, but I myself do not compete in them, nor have I ever trained anybody specifically to compete in ultras. Typically it's just your half marathon or full marathon. And there's a couple of ways to train those. I think the most widely used method is technique runs with duration runs. You find your rhythm, find your pattern, find proper pacing through your technique runs, and then you work on your ability to maintain pace over longer durations. You just try to progress from one week to the next until the week before the marathon you would actually be at full distance. Probably for ultra marathons that's not really feasible because the duration is so long, and so perhaps you would do say 2 technique runs and 2 duration runs each week and just work on overall raising your work capacity. 2 is pre-post workout snacks that I use, and I've seen this question come up a lot on multitude of forums and Facebook groups and whatnot, and something very important to understand is that what your workout is dictates how you need to address it. When you're doing running, jogging, swimming, that is all aerobic exercise. When you lift weights or do something of much higher intensity, that is going to fall within anaerobic. Now, typically aerobic exercise will lower your blood sugar because your body has time to pull the glycogen out at a slower process. When you're doing anaerobic exercise, the energy pathway is much different. It's much quicker, and so a lot of times we end up with a huge dump from the liver to compensate. So I myself primarily engage in lifting. So for me, I do protein, carbs, and fats pre-training. I used to do shakes, and I've just moved away from them solely because I don't like them much anymore, but they're still fine. So say nowadays I would have 7 ounces of grass-fed beef, that's of lean, 97.3 type, with a little bit of butter, grass-fed butter, probably a tablespoon, which is roughly 14 grams of fat, and then a 1/3 to a 1/2 cup of brown rice. And so I take the appropriate amount of insulin for that meal, and that's typically an hour to an hour and a half before I train. During training, I actually use a carb supplement. There's 2 of them that I like to use. One of them is Carbolin, and that's spelled with a K, and the other one is Glycofuse. The reason why is because these are very fast digesting carb sources that you can actually utilize right then. They don't have to digest really at all. Glycofuse is actually individual molecular chains of dextrose, which is only 1 molecule away from glucose. So like I said, it's very fast acting. I take the appropriate amount of insulin to cover those carbs. And what this does is it gives my body a ready fuel source to use instead of pulling it out of other places in my body, whether it's from the liver or from the muscle itself. So my recovery is much better. My stable blood sugars are much better. Post-workout, I typically just do protein. You don't want any fats because you don't want to slow digestion. You want something that you can get in your body to start the recovery process, to rebuild those tears that you've caused in muscle tissue. Even running, this is the same thing. You want to replenish your storage of nutrients in the muscle. So, I've messed with a few things, and right now, currently, I'm not doing any carbs post-training. For the longest time I did, and so it's kind of your goals. If you're looking to gain weight, lose weight, these things can be manipulated based on your individual goals and how you respond to them. Everything is going to affect everybody a little differently just based on our individual biochemistry. I hope that kind of clears that up. I'm actually probably going to do another video that's longer that focuses just on nutrient timing. So look for that one in the future. Do I wear a pump, or am I on multiple injections? I did use a pump in the past, and I found that I had better control doing Lantus and Humalog. I take Lantus twice a day, with the bulk of it being in the AM to help cover the amount of food that I eat in a day. I eat roughly 6 times a day, solely because that's the best way for me to eat to recover from my weightlifting sessions. The Humalog is, of course, on a sliding scale. My sliding scale is more in the morning and less in the evening. In the morning, when you first get up, you have a lot of stress hormones. Cortisol is a big one. That is an insulin desensitizer. It raises your insulin resistance. And so if you eat carbs first thing in the morning, I think for most people, like I said, everybody affected a little differently, but for most people, you're going to find you have to use more insulin in the mornings than you do any other time of the day. So I am on multiple injections. I find that that's been the best. When I've had A1Cs typically in the low 6s, even into the upper 5s with that. Whereas on the insulin pump, I was still at about the 6.5 to 7 range. Do my blood sugars rise after workouts? Rarely. And usually there's some reason. Either I waited too long, sometimes I travel to different places to train and my schedule gets a little thrown out, but when I'm at home and able to train in my typical fashion, no. My blood sugars stay constant throughout the entire workout, and I attribute that to the fact that I eat before and then I have active insulin on board throughout my workouts. Once again, weightlifting will cause your blood sugar to rise because it pulls out glycogen from your liver and everywhere else, and once that's flooded into the bloodstream, if you don't have enough insulin to shuffle it into the muscle, it just sits in your bloodstream. So you're going to have a higher blood sugar. Number 5 is, do I use a temp basal? No, I don't, and I never did. I didn't see the point, although I don't typically engage in a lot of aerobic. I don't typically run long duration or swim. I kind of live in the desert, so swimming is not really an option. Now, are they useful? Yes, they're extremely useful, and they're another tool that we can use to adapt ourselves to our activities. Temp basals for aerobic activity, absolutely. And it really is just going to depend on what specifically you're doing. You're probably going to need an even more reduced or completely disconnect from the pump altogether when you swim, because it is aerobic, but it uses almost every muscle in the body. It's one of the most complete, physically demanding activities that you can do. So yes, temp basals are great. I personally don't use them, but yes, they do have a very strong tool in your repertoire. Number 6 is, what is the best workouts for blood sugar control? Now, we have to quantify this with what control are we looking for? Are we looking for what will overall reduce my insulin resistance? And really either type of exercise, aerobic or anaerobic, will do this. A lot of people shy away from lifting or CrossFit or whatever you want to call it, because their blood sugars tend to rise, and it's really it's correctable, it's controllable. That's the bulk of what I do, and my blood sugars stay very well controlled. It's just finding out what works. I think personally, my opinion is that you need a balance of both. You need anaerobic activity and aerobic activity. The anaerobic activity, the lifting weights, okay, there's a few reasons why I think this is crucial for a diabetic. One is that it improves your neural connections. It improves your nerve signaling ability. A big thing for us is losing sensation in hands and feet through deterioration, radial neuropathy. Is it going to reverse it? No. Do I think that there's a possibility it could help stave off some of the effects? Yes, I do. And on top of that, strength is never a weakness. We look at people that are in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s that are still very active, and they're typically stronger than anybody else their age, and they tend to have a better quality of life. I think weight training don't shy away from it. I think everybody needs to engage in it. We are meant to move things. That's just the human body. Now, am I saying go in and become a bodybuilder? No, not at all. I mean, just because you pick up a weight doesn't mean you have to do CrossFit. It doesn't mean you have to do strongman or powerlifting or bodybuilding. We need to quit trying to classify things in these very narrow stereotypes. Why can't lifting weights just be a way to improve your health? Same thing with running. I mean, if you don't want to run a marathon, don't run a marathon. I don't do marathons. Do I still engage in aerobic activity? Yes, because it's necessary. Either way, I think the combination of both of them together will put you in a much greater ability to control your blood sugars. The more lean muscle mass that you have, the more glycogen you can store, so therefore the more freedom you have in what you can eat. It also overall will improve your insulin sensitivity. And on the other side of it, aerobic activity does really good at draining excess carbs out of the system, or excess glucose. So a real good analogy that I like to give people is that your body is like a glass of water. You get up in the morning and it's empty. You eat a couple of apples or oranges, banana, and now we're here. When you go to lunch and say you eat Mexican food or Chinese food or pizza or whatever, well, now we're full. And so anything that you eat past this really has nowhere to go. You've filled your muscle tissue, you filled your liver full. So what are you going to do with these excess carbs? Well, you have to burn them off. And if you don't burn them off, they're going to run your blood sugar up, and then your body secretes them through your urine. So, if we're thinking about this as a glass of water, when you run or lift or really do anything, it eats away at that storage. And then we're able to get it back down. And anytime that it's back down anywhere within the limits of the glass, you're much more able to control your blood sugars because you actually have the ability to store those where they belong instead of just floating around in excess in the bloodstream. So, there's not a specific one workout that's the best. I think it's a combination of lifting weights, running, jogging, cycling, or swimming, some form of activity that falls within both realms, the aerobic and the anaerobic. I think you need to be doing both if you want to have some serious control over your blood sugar. So these were great questions. I hope that you'll continue to send them to me. If you would like any more clarification on any of these questions, feel free to send Ronnie a message and he'll get them to me. Like I said, I have some ideas for videos that I see, common questions that are coming up a lot across the board, and in a multitude of other places that hopefully I can address. If you have anything that you would like me to delve into more in depth, just send it along. I'm solely here as a resource to help. So Thanks, everybody. Have a great day, and hope I could help.